Hello everyone, my name is Sashtikant Podugu. So now I want to tell about my project recurrent neural networks with sequence data. So coming to what is a neural network? A neural network is similar to an artificial neural network made up of different number of artificial neurons or nodes. We can also call it as a network of systems of biological neurons. In the same way, a biological neuron is made up of a group of neurons that are functionally associated with or chemically connected. In this collection of neurons, a single neuron is linked to many other neurons present, and the overall neurons, the connections of neurons in a network could be huge. And all these connections between these neurons are called as synapses, and these synapses are found between axons and dendrites through dendrodendritic synapses, and even other connections are also possible. So in addition to electric signaling, neurotransmitter dispersion produces other types of signaling also. So the library is used for all the codings of generating the sine wave data or the time series data is uh, is pandas. We have also used TensorFlow version 1.xx, and we have also imported some of the libraries such as sequential, dense, simple RNN, time series generator, and min-max scaler to normalize and generate time series data. So coming to the other topic, Sunspots dataset. Sunspots dataset is also and time series data that I retrieved from Kaggle website. And this dataset has been downloaded by around 9,761 members in the last 30 days and has been viewed by almost 67,000 viewers in the last 30 days. This dataset has the content about monthly mean total Sunspot members from the year 1749 to 2017. It consists of all these years and every monthly mean the sunspots data. To say what these sunspots numbers are, the sun's photosphere has temporary phenomena which appear darker than surrounding areas, and these temporary phenomena are called sunspots. And all these sunspots numbers vary throughout the data. This database is from Solar Influence Data Analysis Center, and the time span is from the January 31st, 1749 to January 31st, 2021. So coming to the McCullough-Pitts neuron diagram. McCullough-Pitts neuron is developed by Warren McCullough and Walter Pitts in the year 1943. This model was inspired from biological neurons. And the attached image is how the biological neuron looks and functions. So it is similar to the biological neuron as you can see the diagram. As it so McClellan-Pitt neuron also works in the same way as a biological neuron works. It also takes inputs and produces the output. But here, each input that is sent has some weight associated with it. The neurons present start summing these weighted inputs, and later it compares the aggregated value with the threshold value. Based on the comparison with the threshold value, we will get the output produced. From the foundations of McCullough-Pitt neuron model, all the neural network architectures that are present now have been developed. And we can see the architecture of the McCullough-Pitt neuron model on the screen. So where we can see the inputs, weights, and these are all summed and using an addition function, and then it is sent to the output. So coming to the next topic, designing a simple RNN for sine wave data. So as we can see, this is the architecture of the simple RNN that I have built to produce sine wave data. So to talk about the design, the architecture is divided into two sections. Simple RNN, which is also called as vanilla RNN, and feed-forward neural network, which has a fully connected layer. It consists of one input layer, one hidden layer, and an output layer. As we all know that input layer is not counted as a layer, we can count this a simple neural network with two layers. The input layer is used to take the inputs that we give, which are processed through the hidden layer, and as it is given as output to us from the output layer. The number of neurons that we are using in the simple RNN to produce sine wave data is 75 neurons in the hidden layer and also one neuron in the dense layer. So as I have said earlier, these are the libraries that I have been imported to generate the sine wave data. So the basic libraries are Pandas, NumPy, and the Matplotlib to show the visualizations. And and I have also imported models like TensorFlow and Keras to import the sequential and simple RNN layers. And I have also imported models for time series and min-max scalar to generate the time series data and also to normalize the data that I have. So this is the code for normalizing the data. Here we can see that I have used min-max scalar for normalizing the data. And then later I have set the batch size to 1 with the length 50. So length 50 is the number of input sequences that I have that I took as 50 to generate a new data point. And then I have created the time series generator. So after after that, I have built the simple RNN model using one feature and one input layer. As you can see, the model is equal sequential code, and the other layer is the hidden layer, which is simple RNN layer with 75 neurons, and the input shape is like 50 is the length, and with the future number of futures as one. And later, I have also added the code like model dot add dense one, which is nothing but a fully connected layer with one neuron. And so after I build the simple RNN model, I have compiled the model using the optimizer as Adam and the loss function as MSC. So, so here we can see the results of the model that I have generated. So this is the sine wave data that I have generated now. So from the test data that I have obtained, I have generated this sine wave data, uh, and uh, and from this model we can see it. We can see how the predicted sine wave is in the blue color, in the orange color, sorry, and the blue color is the sine wave data that I have to. So as we can see, the both the lines are closer to each other, which indicates that this RNN model has slightly lower degree of accuracy as there is some difference between each other. Overall, I can conclude that the model can perform very well than this and can accurately predict the sign values. And the reason why the model is not that accurate and can perform more is because of the number of neurons that I have used is 75, maybe very less for it, or the number of layers also, the hidden layers or simple RNN layers that I have used is one, right? So maybe because of these two things, the model has performed in a moderate way. So, and coming to the other thing is vanishing gradient problem. So we all know that it's hard for the RNNs to memorize the information, the sequence is long. Vanishing gradient problem occurs during the training of neural networks with gradient-based methods such as backpropagation. Gradients are nothing but values which are used to update the weights that have been applied to a neural network. When these gradients shrink as they backpropagate through time, it will be very difficult for the neural network to learn with small gradient value, and it leads to vanishing gradient problem. For instance, if we consider a sentiment analysis problem where we use a simple RNN to process a sentence and then classify the intention from the inputs. So during this, first, first, which is fed into the RNN, and then topic, and then is, and then he, and then talking, and then about. So when this last input is fed as an output into the feed forward neural network, and then it classifies the intent. At this process of training an RNN, there are three major steps that happen. First is that it performs a forward pass and makes a prediction, and later it compares the prediction and real values using the loss function. Later, the generated error value is used to perform backpropagation, where it calculates the gradients. The larger the gradient is, the bigger the adjustment will be, and the smaller the gradient is, the smaller the adjustment will be. So a layer is considered to be as a time step in an unrolled recurrent neural network. Throughout this backpropagation occurring for each step, the gradient starts shrinking exponentially. This whole process has adjustments for each node smaller, and as a result, the gradient gets shrunk and the network stops learning. With this, the RNN stops remembering about the first word, such as which topic, and does not learn about them to classify the sequence intent. This vanishing gradient problem is mostly associated with activation functions. There are different techniques that need to be used to mitigate this vanishing gradient problem. And the other thing is exploding gradient problem. Exploding gradient problem is similar to the vanishing gradient problem and is considered as counterpart to vanishing gradient problem. This also occurs during the training of neural networks, particularly during backpropagation. When the gradients of a network's loss will become extremely large, then the exploding gradient problem is formed. This issue is extremely problematic when a deep neural network has many layers, as it leads to instability during training. As we use gradients to learn the weights of a neural network, we all know that the gradients closer to the output layers are multiplied with the gradients of the layers that are close to the input layers. The multiplication of these gradients will become huge. The gradients are large, resulting in the model being unable to learn because of instability. If you consider an example where a neural network has 20 layers and each layer consists of one neuron, in this example, we can see that X is the input that we are giving and Y is the predicted output with the weights represented with W. And each of these layers has ReLU activation function, and the output of each neuron is calculated with the input that it got and the weight it has. So forwarding to each neuron till we get the output, there is some change that happens, and the greater the change in the weight occurs in the gradient respected to that weight is high. Even if the weights that are initialized have large values, also leads to the exploding gradient problem. And to talk about the limitations of a simple RNN neural network, simple RNN neural network is also called as feed-forward neural network or multi-layer perceptrons. It consists of input layers, hidden layers, and output layers. The input layer gets an input it processes, and it sends the output as an input to the next layer. So simple RNNs suffer from short-term memory, leading to vanishing gradient problem, as it makes it difficult to capture the information from earlier time steps. Even simple RNNs can undergo exploding gradient problems, which limits it to not have more layers in its network. And even using simple RNN network, it struggles to model complex relationships compared to long short-term memory neural networks. Simple RNNs have also challenged when dealing with long sequences as an input. Even the simple RNNs can overfit the data as they memorize the training data more, failing to generalize to the new data. Simple RNNs have only one hidden state, making it very difficult to store diverse information of a sequence. Even simple RNNs cannot handle large data sets as they are more expensive and require a lot of memory for processing these large amounts of data. And to talk about the long short-term memory neural networks and its solutions, so we can see the diagram here, and the long short-term memory neural networks were proposed in the mid-90s as a solution to the vanishing and exploding gradient problems, as they can preserve the error along the path of backpropagation through which the neural network can continue learning. Also, the LSTM has memory cells and gates which can address simple RNNs limitations such as short-term memory due to the gradient problem, as the memory cells allow the LSTMs to maintain the information over long sequences, addressing the vanishing gradient problem. And as a gating mechanisms helps to control the flow of data and gradient during backpropagation, LSTMs prevent exploding gradient problem also. Even LSTM has also hidden state, and any later time step can use the information carried from the previous cell step without any reduction, as there is no weight involved in the cell, which causes the LSTM to handle the sequential data well. Overall, we can conclude that LSTMs provide powerful solutions to vanishing and exploding gradient problems and can also address the limitations that are present in a simple RNN neural network. And the architecture of LSTM is also one of the main reasons which allows them to capture long dependencies, modeling complex relationships, handle sequential data, and reduce overfitting, making them extremely preferable choice for sequential data tasks.